Hi guys, it's Ms. Miner, and we are going to be doing lesson 2C, and this is solving equations with inequalities. So our goal to be, what we want to be able to do at the end of this lesson is be able to solve equations that have inequalities. That'd be nice. Okay, so let's just remember for a minute how we do inequalities. And the first thing that we need to remember is that when I have an inequality like 5 is greater than or equal to x, if I'm going to graph it, if I have an inequality symbol, let me just get my pen here, right? When I graph it, I will have an open dot if it's greater or less than, and I'll have a closed dot if it's greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So I always start with my number. I want to put a dot at my number. So x is less than positive 5. So I start at the 5. I kind of circle it. I make a dot, right? And then I want 5. Notice how this is the open mouth right here. So this is the big thing. This is the small thing. So my numbers, my x numbers, right here, my x numbers are the numbers smaller than 5. And so I want to put my arrow towards where the numbers smaller than 5 are. And so the numbers that are smaller than 5 are going in this direction. And that's kind of how I read it. I kind of look for that big mouth, and I kind of like to decide like which is the big thing and which is the small thing, so that I label it like this is my big, this is my small, and then I know which way my arrow is going to go. So then I want to decide, do I need to fill in the dot or not? And so I look over here and I see, oh, it has an or equals to, so I color in my dot. Okay, so that's kind of how I do that. Let's graph our other one here. Let's erase this graph now, and let's do k as less than -4. Again, I'm going to start by putting a dot at -4. I'm going to kind of circle the number that I'm interested in, and then I need to decide my numbers. This is the small end, so these are small, right? And this is the big thing. So -4 is bigger, so where are my small numbers? My small numbers are moving in this direction. And then I've got to decide, do I close it in? Well, when I look here, there's no or equal to, so I leave it open. So that's how I graph my inequalities. And that's just a review. That's stuff that you should have remembered from 7th grade. That's so now if I want to write the expression from the inequality, right, I always kind of start by saying, okay, I want x, I have an x, and then where is my starting point? This one is at -3. So I kind of write down, I give myself a variable x, my numbers are going to be either greater than or less than -3, right? So then I look and I say, well, what are these numbers? Are they bigger or smaller? And they are bigger than -3, so I want my numbers, I want my big mouth to be pointed toward my extra numbers, right? Or my numbers that I'm interested in. So I put my big mouth towards the x. Then I look right here. It's a closed circle, so I put equal to as well, because this could also be equal to -3. So that's how we write an inequality. How do I solve an equation that's an inequality? This is saying that this side of my equation is smaller than -26. Well, the first thing that I want to do is just pretend like this is not an inequality. Pretend like this is an equality. I'm going to move this. I'm just going to move this down for a minute. I'm going to save the graph for a minute. And so the first thing I want to do is just pretend like this is an equal sign instead of an inequality. And I'm going to solve just with the same steps that we've always been solving equations with. I'm going to solve this with the same thing. I'm going to simplify both sides. I'm going to move one of my x's right? If I had x's on both sides, I'm going to get rid of my extra x's. I'm going to get rid of the number that's not connected to my variable, and then I'm going to get rid of the number that is connected to my variable. I'm going to do all of those things. Those are the same kind of steps or procedures that we've been using this whole time to solve equations. So I'm just going to pretend for a minute that this inequality is an equal sign, and I'm just going to solve it like I normally would. So in this case, right, here's my extra hostage. The plus 10 is my hostage that's going to escape first, or that's my number that's not connected to my variable. So I draw my line down. I subtract 10 from both sides. This is going to go to 0. I'm going to get negative 6a is less than negative, this is going to be 36 over here. Then I want to go ahead and get rid of the number that is connected to my variable. So I divide by a negative 6. And this is where I have to be really careful, because the rule for inequalities is if I'm multiplying or dividing at this last step, only right here, when I divide, if I'm dividing by a negative number, I have to switch the direction of my sign. So a is greater than, and the reason why is because I'm going to get rid of this negative sign, right? That's going to cancel out, and so it's switching the direction to be positive. And then this over here, negative 36 divided by 6 is going to be, oh, sorry, not 3. That was my mistake. 6. So when I switch that from a negative to a positive, I also have to switch the sign right here. And so that's the difference right there. So I have to switch my sign. So A, that's a weird A. It kind of looks like a 9. That's an A. A is greater than 6. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph it. I start at the number 6. Oh, my thing doesn't even have a 6 on it. I put my open circle at 6, and then I want the numbers bigger than 6. Well, this is a terrible graph because it doesn't even have the numbers that I want it to have, right? So, but then I just would draw my graph like I normally would. And so that's how I graph my inequality. Okay, so this is saying that this side over here is bigger than that over there. So I'm going to, for a minute, just pretend like this here was an equal sign instead. And I'm just going to solve it. It's not an equal sign, right? But I'm just going to pretend like it is, because I use the same steps to solve this as I would if I had an equal sign there. So I draw my line down. Oh, sorry. Not ready to draw my line. The first thing that I need to do here is distribute. So I'm going to change colors here just so you can see. I'm going to distribute this negative 4, multiply by negative 4, multiply by negative 4 here. And these are just the same exact steps that we had before. 40 plus 8n is greater than or equal to negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 7 is 28n. Negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 5 is 20. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line down. I'm going to get rid of one of my extra n's that I don't want. So let's go ahead and subtract 8 n's from this side. This is going to go to 0. And 40 is greater than or equal to, this will be 20 n's plus 20. Okay, I removed my extra variable set. I simplified both sides. Now I need to add or subtract the number that's not connected to the variable. So this should be very familiar to you guys. Subtract 20. Subtract 20. I'm not changing any of my steps. This goes to 0. 20 n's is greater than, or sorry, less than or equal to 20. And then the last thing that I want to do is multiply or divide by the number that's connected to my variable. I'm going to change color again. Divide by 20. Divide by 20. This is going to go to 1. And so n is less than or equal to 1. Now I did not have to switch the sign on this one because notice this was always positive. And so I didn't change the direction of my number line here. And so I didn't have to switch my greater than or less than sign. That was just divide by 20. I wanted to be able to show what my answer was right there. Okay, so n is less than or equal to 1, or I could read it 1 is greater than or equal to n. And there's my answer. This should not be like unfamiliar. This should be pretty familiar to you guys. Let's do one straight off our homework assignment. This is one right off your homework assignment. So let's do this one together. Maybe a good idea would be pause the video, try it on your own, and then come back and check your answer. The first thing that we want to do is just go ahead and distribute the -4 times by a -4 times by a -4. And 56 is greater than -4 minus 12n. Then I'm going to just draw my line down, and I want to add 4 to both sides to get rid of my extra hostage. This is going to go to 0. -12n is equal to 60. Oh, sorry, not equal to, but I'm thinking about it as being an equal sign, so there's the difference. It's greater than or less than. Okay, then the last step is divide by the -12. Red alert, I have a negative number and I'm about to divide, and it's going to turn positive right here, right? When I divide by a negative number, what's happening is it's taking this n value and changing it from a negative to a positive, right? And so I have to switch my inequality symbol, right? And so now n is greater than, over here this is going to be -5. And every time I switch the sign on my result over here, what it does is it switches this inequality, because I went from a negative to a positive, right? So it's switching kind of like the way my number line is facing. That's at least how I think about it in my head. I'm switching from the negative side of the number line over to the positive side. And when I do that, I also have to switch my inequality. Okay, so there's our lesson for today. It was pretty short. No big deal because we've done a lot of equation solving up to this point. So solving an inequality should not be that big of a deal. All right, good luck, you guys. Have a great day.